The little ding. We want that to really ring out.
Do you want it to change notes? You got
No, notes right. Ding, 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 ding. Oh,
Like an accent on it.
maybe both of these need to be highlighted a little bit.
Brought out.
bring those out.
It's sort of a dramatic effect there as you build up.
Ready when you guys are. 1, 2, 3. That's great. And that brings us to our second free improv. Yeah, this is really exciting. I get to work with all of my friends and, musicians that I've wanted to put down music with and document these conversations in real time. I love that everybody came from all over the country to be here, making times in their super busy schedules. It means a lot to me. At this point in my life, the relationships and understanding and friendships and even conflict, but the humanity that we bring to the table is what I want to feature in my music and in my performances. To me, it's an all-star band. And we're playing the music of Gregg Hill, and that's heavy too because Gregg writes beautiful, searching, haunting, dissonant, and catchy melodies. So I spent several hours poring over his 1 million songs that he has, and I handpicked 10 of them. It's been great. We hope you enjoy it, some of the fruits of this labor. How did the Other Shoe title come about?
Anybody that's lived in an apartment building or tenement in New York City, particularly where people are packed together and the walls are a little thin, the other shoe is when the person gets home at 1 o'clock in the morning and you hear that clunk and you're still awake and you're a little bit restless and you're waiting for that other shoe, and sure enough that other shoe hits, but you don't know if it's going to be 1 second or 2 minutes. So this tune is sort of based on that concept. The first ending is some mild dissonance, so okay, are we going to do that again for the second ending? No, we stretch out a little bit, and the second ending is even more dissonant, so it's more like a clunk. So I like to write descriptive material, if possible. That's sort of, make it visual, make it storytelling.
It's very descriptive.
Make it, tell some sort of story. That as the melody moves along, you want to lead people along, like you're telling a story, and then you want to take them place. You want to take them somewhere with your story. So that's the goal of me as a composer, to take you somewhere. So
I feel like we, complete each other in a lot of these things, because I had no idea it was an actual shoe when I saw the composition. As a matter of fact, the shoe itself, like a heel and a sole and a top and a arch and all that stuff, that was the furthest thing from my mind. I was thinking the metaphorical, the other shoe drops, as that thing that we're either dreading or we're anticipating in life. It happens, and then all of a sudden we have to deal with it.
yeah.
I had no idea it was a real shoe.
Well,
I love that.
I think the album title works because it's wide open to the imagination. Okay, what is this supposed to be about?
Well, it's definitely wide open because you're at a shoe, and I'm at everything but. so I love it, and to hear that backstory of the song. You told me that before we recorded it,
right.
And it completely freed me up. It disarmed me and let me drop my guard and get to something which I think is really creative.
Mm-hmm. Michael is one of the professors of jazz at Michigan State, and Michael has a knack for finding the stuff that's a little bit out there, not way out there, but he's able to latch onto it and put his own personality, his own stamp on it, and it's much appreciated from the composer's point of view, because you stay true to the material, and then you just stretch it out and put your own personality into it. So.
Oh, that's cool to hear, because thank you, first of all, and it's the best of both worlds to get to honor the material in your compositions and be myself.
That's what we like to do. That's what this album is all about. You asked me how did you go from your humble beginning to being #1 trombone player in the world? And I say it's destiny. That's the only thing I could. That's an honest answer to your question. You're destined to succeed because you've got so many things that make you who you are, and the storyline just sort of propels itself.
Thanks.
You have a competitive nature, but you're wise at the same time and sensitive to other human beings, and you've got the qualities that allow you to rise to the top like that. So.
I'm uncomfortable with all these compliments, Gregg.
Well, okay.
Thank you, first of all, and I've been really lucky to be in a sense very simple-minded. My mom and my dad, to an extent, always tried to get me to get to the very nitty-gritty, like what are we really talking about, and I had this kind of freedom and charge as a kid to, despite our, not being rich or not being, having a whole ton of resources, my mom wanted me to do something I loved. It was her charge for me as a kid, and my dad too, in his own way. He was a tenant farmer growing up, and raising like peanuts and legumes and sugar cane. But they encouraged me to pursue arts because they could tell that I loved it, and I've just tried to keep that focus and that passion my whole career. I've really learned a lot from my role models, both on the records and in person. I try to embrace not knowing things. To me, that's one of the most beautiful parts of the whole journey is being comfortable and embracing that there's more to do. It's rather than championing these small accomplishments. I mean, the goals are just fodder and fuel to keep you on the path. This is amazing. So I feel that way, whether I win a Downbeat award or whether my students do something cool or whether me and my wife go get to play classical music together. It's all the same passion and joy that I started out thinking as a little kid. Wow, am I going to have a chance to do this one day for my livelihood?
So one question I've never asked you about, and I don't want to appear like an interviewer here, but why the trombone? I guess 'cause I don't know why people gravitate to the trombone.
Sure.
Some of the great personalities are trombone players.
The trombone used to be the instrument in jazz. It was the instrument. Tommy Dorsey, at his height of power and popularity, was the top musician in the world. His dance band had everybody up and dancing, and all the foxtrot, the two-step, all those dances that I can't do. And he was a trombonist out in front of the band leading, getting paid. He was in movies. I mean, we're talking, it's a big deal. This is before Frank Sinatra. As a matter of fact, Tommy Dorsey mentored and paved the way for Frank Sinatra to become Sinatra, So the trombone was there first, of course. My journey to it is really unique. I started as a saxophone player. I fell in love with Charlie Parker's music, and I couldn't understand these beautiful lines and sounds and tones coming at me. The three big things: rhythm, sound, and harmony. It just washed over me, and I was a different person after that. And so I knew I needed to be in jazz music. But the saxophone, as much as I loved it at that time, it wasn't the beacon to light my way, I'll say. And then when I was 17, right when I turned 17, I heard John Coltrane's album, Blue Train, and the trombone on that recording became that beacon. I had what I call a spiritual or religious or manic experience. I mean, I froze and I shook and I cried and this instrument really spoke to me.
Yeah.
I got one that night from my best friend Jeremy. He snuck it out of his window at 2 a.m. And I taught myself to play the trombone while I learned Curtis Fuller's solo.
Wow, that's
on Blue Train.
Yeah.
So that's at 17 I started teaching myself. The music actually taught me. I mean, I didn't have a instructor. I couldn't read bass clef. I just copied the music, and the music taught me how to get the sound. You know, I just heard it and experimented until it started to sound closer and closer and closer to Curtis Fuller.
Ba-da-ba-da-bum. Yeah.
Boo dot, exactly.
Yeah. Cool stuff.
That's one thing I love about you, Gregg, is that there's so much of the music in your music. You have your unique and quirky and scintillating and deep personality that rests on top of all of this history and knowledge of the music that came before us. And we were talking the other day about McCoy Tyner, because you had observed that one of the things we were doing had a musical relationship to the music of McCoy in the 70s and 80s. Mm-hmm. And that it blew me away on 2 levels, because I don't hear a lot of recognition for that era of jazz in my everyday discussions with people. And then the other side is you nailed it. I mean, you were right on point. I mean, it was a dead on bullseye, 100%. To have that type of connection to the music of the past is just beautiful to me.
Well, like Rodney said, I've absorbed it like a sponge for 60 years. It's in my pores, so it just becomes part of it. It's on an unconscious level and just comes out in different variations. And then you have your own personality, of course. You're an individual person with your own creative
It's so
outlook.
simple when you say it that way.
So it's just a sort of a natural.
That's
your gravitation to trombone, and my gravitation to composing the same way. I've got all these musical ideas going on all the time. My head is a jukebox. There's a lot of people like me that just, there's always a tune. Doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing. There's a tune bouncing around there somewhere. And you don't know where the stuff comes from, but it's there. And it surfaces when you actually sit down and start composing, then all the stuff bubbles to the surface, basically. And you don't know what shape it's going to take until you create the shape for it.
Right.
So.
There's a lot of answers in what you just said for people that, whether you're trying to get more into music, or you're trying to understand what it's about, or you're trying to become a deeper player, you're trying to gain an understanding, or you want to know what's happening up there. The answer is real simple. I mean, you just said it 5 different ways, and this is that you have to listen to the music. There's no getting around it. I talk to my students about that. I talk to people that are interested in jazz but can't decipher it, and they feel like they need a PhD to understand what all the notes mean, and you don't. It's really simple, and I think your music conveys that, because we hear your originality reflected in all these, or maybe I should say refracted, because it's going all these different places, and the 100+ years of jazz that we have is so rich. Why would you want to miss a place?
Right.
You can't, to miss something that has been given to us is just like an opportunity not realized.
Well, that's where the trombone matches up nicely with this material, because we're sort of walking through the decades here, and that's the thing I admire about the New Orleans players. They take you on. They'll take you back into the early classical stuff from the Caribbean and Cuba and stuff like that, and South America. I mean, that's all part of their fabric. We were well aware of that, but I just admire the heck out of that idea. Okay, there's a classical composer 150 years ago. He's giving us this melodic line that guess what? It's part of our everyday listening experience. It's buried in different renditions of different tunes. That line came from 150 years ago that somebody put a tune together in a classical realm, and in a different part of the world, basically. It's up way in the southern hemisphere. So
yeah.
It's just amazing what the trombone is the history of jazz, really. I have to agree with you there.
the trombone was there from day one. It was there with the tuba before the string bass. It was there before the saxophone, when the saxophone was a clarinet. It was there when the clarinet was a metal clarinet. It was there before the trumpet, when the trumpet was the cornet. It's the trombone is rich, and it's so hard. It's a very difficult instrument. Again, it's difficult and it's simple. That's kind of like a theme in my life. I think it's like, here's something incredibly hard, now figure it out.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if you take it down to its zero, its common denominator. Like, what are we doing? We're blowing air, we're buzzing, and we're fitting those notes in the overtone series.
Yeah.
And the trombone, when you realize the simple mission of the trombone and all of the options that it gives the trombonist to emote, to slip, to slide, to fall, to doit, to trill, to multiphonics, to growl, to sing, to vibrate, to vibrato, to alter the tone in several different ways, to play extremely high, to play extremely low, to play like a saxophone, to play like a typewriter. You can do percussion with it. I mean, it's really a beautiful instrument.
Yep, and on the album you go all the way from Kid Ory up to avant-garde in the 60s, and you sort of reflect the history of the trombone in your playing, because I think in a lot of ways you're like me, you've soaked it up, soaked it in, you've taken it all in, your ears are wide open, it's become part of you. So
yeah, I've tried to replicate your life's experience, and just hit the records and listen and try to imagine what would it be like to be out at a club or listening to the radio or putting on a 12-inch record and thinking like, this music is hitting me, this is what's going on in the world. You can't separate the music from the history. It's impossible, because the history is what begets the music. To me, I can't listen to early bebop without thinking of World War II. I can't listen to Blue Train without thinking of Jim Crow. I can't listen to Marvin Gaye or Yusef Lateef without thinking of the Civil Rights Movement. It's amazing. Even to right now, to the very day, it's being reflected. It's the newspaper of the music world. Jazz music is.
I'm amazed at I can't remember what tune it is, but one of your solos, I said, you sound like Roswell Rudd. Now that's a fairly obscure player, but you sort of. I said, "Go Roswell." I think I did. I don't know if you heard me or not.
I did hear you. No,
you are deep, man. But
to me, he's not
a household name. You had to be. He was Archie Shep's.
He was. He went to Yale.
And I heard him many times in New York City when I lived there back in the day, and so I knew right away what that sound, how similar that was to what you were doing there. But it's extremely cool. That's really hip to be able to tap guys like that. I mean, you really studied everything.
Yeah. Flexible Flyer was my first Roswell Rudd album, and I just jumped all the way into it, and it made such a big impact. And then I started checking everything out, from as early as possible to what's happening today. So I try to be informed, and I love being influenced by the music, because we are the music. I can't think of a better compliment to that person or the music. Because it's a community, it's a continuance, it's we're all sharing each other's vocabulary, each other's language, and my sound and my approach is going to be richer for it.
Right, your ears are wide open.
It was such a thrill to have this great band in the studio. And I love that you let me handpick the band for that. That was, trust is so important.
Absolutely.
That's everything. And that's how great relationships are made. When you trust somebody, you let them be themselves. And so this record is very me. And I love that. And I love to get a chance to execute a vision. And you have such great material with it to work, and so the band is just fantastic. We have Virginia MacDonald on clarinet from Toronto. She's absolutely incredible. what an amazing tone and sensitivity on the clarinet. We have a frontline thing that contrasts and complements each other. I can't wait for y'all to hear it. On piano, we have Geoffrey Keezer, the now legendary pianist that has so much authenticity in every direction that he chooses to go in and can support and hook things up in a special way. Allison, in his own way, is very similar, although he's at the beginning of his journey. Is also an MSU grad. Along with MSU grads, we have Liany Mateo. What a combination of sensitivity and versatility and grit, beautiful sound, so much focus and talent and dedication. She's going to be one of the great bass players working today. On drums, Colleen Clark, who's a professor at University of South Carolina, but cut her teeth in New York City and just got her doctorate at University of North Texas. She plays with so much fire and feeling and has all this control and subtlety happening and great cymbal tone. It's really quite a great band. We have Kevin Jones and Gwendolyn Dease playing percussion, hand drums, shakers, all types of things. Give it that extra dimension. And as my student, Joel Perez, plays this really lyrical, big-toned, muscular trombone solo. It's on one tune. And of course I save the genius of Rodney Whitaker for the end here. You know, he was so gracious to join us on one tune. It actually has two basses, Rodney and his protege, Liany Mateo. He plays a compelling solo, and it's one of the highlights of the album. And his great spirit and incredible influence on the session was just the cherry on top of the cake for me.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a joy to work with you.